say welcome.
Okay, so hi everyone, Julie here. Today I'm with Kareem from School of Yalla. We are in Amman and we met up to discuss the myth about learning Arabic. So he is an Arabic teacher and I'm an Arabic learner. And so we're going to hopefully bust some myths. So welcome, Kareem.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Julie.
So let's just dive right in. The first myth about learning Arabic is that Arabic is the most difficult language to learn in the world.
I hear this from so many people, too many people. It is definitely a difficult language. I wouldn't say the most difficult. As someone who I don't speak that many languages, but you would have to ask someone who speaks like maybe Mandarin Chinese and maybe German, or maybe like a few other, like ask a polyglot that speaks,
like
other complex, other different languages to give you a more solid answer. But I would say yes, it could be more of the difficult languages, only because of the way the teaching is has been structured, with learning Fusha first, or Fusha, which is MSA, as we know, or learning dialect, and all the questions that people have when they start their learning journey maybe confuses them. So that's part of the difficulty. But if you take care of that part, I think it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
But the other part that contributes to the difficulty, reputation, is probably the pronunciation, because we have some of the most difficult letters to pronounce, as you know. The ain, the qaf.
For me, it's the ka.
You got it, almost there.
I can't
Almost
say it.
there. But that's a nice thing when learning dialect, and which we'll get to later. You don't necessarily, especially if you're learning like Levantine dialect and even Gulf dialects, the qa turns into a ga in a lot of instances, or a. So on a gult or ult, I said things like that.
Like what it?
What? Yeah, what or what? You can either say what instead of waqt. You can say what, like with that stoppage, the hamza, or ga, waqt.
Okay. But I think what you mentioned, this brings us to the second myth about Fusha and dialect. So the myth is that you need to learn Fusha first to be able to communicate with everyone in the Arab-speaking world, and then maybe specialize in a dialect. So first, what do you think about that?
Okay, let's bust the second myth.
This one you don't like. Like you don't like this.
Let's bust this myth. Honestly, there's no right or wrong answer, but it really depends on your goals. So I would say this: people that are looking to converse, looking for conversation in Arabic, looking to really get by and speak with people, you don't really need Fusha. A lot of times we want to just learn a language for the purpose of connecting with someone, and getting by. So Fusha, you need to start with reading and writing and learning the rules. With spoken, there are rules, and a lot of times people forget this. Like there's still rules with spoken Arabic, but I would recommend, if you're looking to learn conversational Arabic, go for dialect or spoken Arabic first. Now, on the other hand, there are people that study Arabic from an academic standpoint. They have the time. They're going to university to study Arabic. Like their goal is to master this language, or their like that's what they're going to university for, or whatever academic institution.
Yeah.
If you have that time, yes, learn the script, alphabet, learn Fusha, then go into dialects. There's a lot of overlaps between both, and Fusha is still the base. It is the standard language, right? Modern standard Arabic.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it depends on the goals. But if you're looking for conversational Arabic, learn dialect. Was the myth again? Was it you need Fusha first to learn?
Or like with Fusha, you can talk with anyone, so that's why you should learn it over dialects.
No, this I disagree with. Yeah. Like I wouldn't. Was that the second or third one?
That was the second myth.
No, I don't think. A lot of what I would say is, a lot of times, people that don't have really experience with the learning and teaching the Arabic, they'll say, "Khalas, go for standard Arabic." It is true for natives, and we all have standard Arabic for Fusha to understand one another during formal situations, like on the news. So I can't use my dialect if I'm broadcasting news about the region. No, it has to be somewhat more formal, so everybody understands it. I can't use like a slang word on TV. So that's where Fusha comes in, and everybody understands.
Is that why there is some kind of? I feel there's some kind of nice reputation around Fusha, like for local people, because they always try to teach me the Fusha words, and I always say la 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 la, ami.
Yeah.
And I feel like they see Fusha as this more elevated version of Arabic, which culturally it is like it's a literary kind of intellectual,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they always say. But just to circle back to Arabic being difficult, I think this is one of the main things. A lot of people study for 3-4 years in university Fusha.
Mm.
They cannot talk to local people when they come on holidays in Egypt or in Jordan. They cannot talk to
True.
local people.
True.
Locals understand them, but they don't understand dialect,
Yeah.
and that makes it extremely difficult to
Yeah.
learn. It's like learning Latin, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't talk to anyone, so or not easily. So I think this is what makes Arabic difficult.
Yeah, and I think the reason you said, most locals try to teach you Fusha, it's because that's how we were taught. Like we were taught Fusha in school, so we're just relaying what we learned.
Mm,
But there wasn't really a formal way to teach dialect. Like we just learned that at home.
mhm,
Your parents speak to you in
mm-mm.
dialect or spoken Arabic. So naturally, when someone's gonna teach you, they're gonna teach you what they were taught. That's my
Okay.
kind of my
Okay,
logic.
that
Uh,
makes sense.
but yeah, nowadays there's programs like the program I run more focused on like a structured method of teaching spoken Arabic.
Mm-mm.
So there's things like that. So it's slowly the methods of teaching I think are changing.
Yeah, I think Arabic dialects are becoming more and more trendy in the language learning world. And
Yeah.
I think lots of teachers like you are taking a very practical, organic approach to teaching Arabic. And I think it's becoming more accessible, but
Mhm.
it's very difficult to find resources
These
in
resources.
dialect. And yeah, it's difficult.
For sure.
Okay, the last one, which you mentioned, and I think we disagree on this one,
Uh,
is that you need to learn to read and write in Arabic to be able to learn to speak Arabic.
mm.
So what do you think?
So I'll say you don't need it definitely. Like I have my beginner program. I tell people you do not need to learn how to know or have prior background of reading and writing to speak. We use Arabizi or transliteration with the 7 as the has, or like the
Mhm.
3 as the ain, the sound. Um, so you don't necessarily need it at the beginning. Where it comes into play later on is by when you start exploring kind of those tricky sounds, like the difference between the ta and the ta, like
Mhm.
normal T versus heavy T, seen and the sad, dal and the dad, things like that. So that's where seeing the script and understanding what the script is or what the letters represent will help you.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, what I found, especially with beginners who have zero background, um, a lot of them are intimidated or one big kind of setback for them or obstacle to learning Arabic is like, oh no, well, we don't know how to read and write, and
Yeah.
it's gonna take us so long to learn. So they get discouraged and
And
they
it
stop.
is a bit difficult because each letter has like, well, 2 to 4
Different,
shapes
yeah,
and
versions.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So personally, I find that you do need, maybe not from the beginning, but
Mm,
you do need to learn to read and write, because I am in the moment right now where I think I waited a little bit too long
mm.
to practice reading and writing. So there's a huge lack of balance between my ability to speak
Speak and write.
Arabic
Yeah,
and write. So whenever I want to communicate on WhatsApp, for example,
yeah.
I have to, because I can't use like Latin letters, like
Uh,
to
the,
say
the
Arabic
Arabizi,
word. Yeah, like
like the
the people
7
just
and the.
don't understand it. So I have to use Arabic script,
uh,
and it takes me hours to write
yeah.
messages. So I just send audio messages, and it's like this vicious circle where
Uh,
I don't practice, so I don't learn. So
so
then I'm stuck. So now it's like a huge effort I have to make.
for sure. Like in your level of learning where you're a little more advanced and you're speaking to
But
locals,
I waited too long to do what you said. To start.
to switch
Yeah,
to learn
yeah,
script. I think
yeah.
it's okay. Listen, with especially if you're texting people, this helps a lot. Like on WhatsApp, if you're making spelling mistakes between the ta and the ta, for example, adi, just ask your friends, be like, because they're gonna understand. If you write atini with a ta,
Mm-hmm.
which is incorrect, they're gonna still get it and they'll probably respond. Just ask your friends, like, please correct me if I'm writing something wrong.
But
It won't be a lot. No, I saw the script. It's not that bad. Just
no,
like
it
one or
is.
two errors.
No, I swear. Because this I had like my notebook. I showed Carrie my practice. This I had the support of the dictionary and
Okay.
like no this yeah
This is okay. This was like planned and okay,
yeah
cool.
yeah. This took
That
me like a good
takes a while,
good
huh?
while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
شوف, yeah, I mean, يعني عادي. It I don't know. It certainly helps to know how to
mm-mm.
read and write, but I think it's for super beginners. Don't make that kind of a prerequisite to your learning or to start
Mm.
your learning journey. You don't need it
Oh yeah,
to,
absolutely. You
to
can start.
know the main phrases and
Yeah.
to get by, and focus more on like the sentence structure, understanding the basic rules of the language. And then reading and writing, you will come. Especially if you're in a Arabic speaking city, you see writing everywhere, like street names,
I know.
you
Yeah.
fully immerse, so it's gonna help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying, when I'm in a taxi, I'm trying to like read the signs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I understand
Even
them, but
packaging, like go to the supermarket and like read
yep.
like milk, halib, asi, and like just read that to get a sense of
Yeah.
how things are
Reading for me is a lot easier than
than
writing.
writing. Okay.
Writing is so hard
Uh,
because I don't hear the difference between the ta and
okay,
the
no. It's
ta,
perfectly
like
normal. Yeah.
yeah.
So many of my students still have that. It's normal. It's very tricky.
All right, so I think that's it for the myth busting. Do you want to plug yourself a little bit and tell us about your school and like what you do?
Sure, sure. So like Julie mentioned, so I'm an Arabic teacher, but I also run an Arabic teaching academy called School of Yalla. And we focused on teaching conversational Arabic or spoken Arabic. Not really Fusha at this time, maybe in the near future, but now it's mostly dialect, particularly Levantine and particularly Palestinian and Jordanian dialects. Yeah, like I said, we focused on teaching Arabic from scratch without knowing how to read and write, reading and writing over like the following levels. But at the beginning, just teaching you how to get by, proper sentence structure, verb conjugations, so you can know how to construct your own sentences without having to like refer to Google and get confused.
But actually, for example, your content that you put on social media, I found extremely helpful to start matching the words that I knew in my mind, but I didn't know how to spell because you always put the English transliteration and then the script, and that's really, really useful. So I really recommend his stuff.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for today. So I'll
Alas.
see you in the next video.
We'll see you in the next video.
Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.